Luxury, it's always meant to be in a state of great comfort and elegance with a high expense. It's something that's totally unnecessary but highly desirable. Now, if you've seen the new 7 Series, the i7, it seems that luxury is all about technology and screens and stuff like that, but that just doesn't sit right with me. Every 2-3 year old has got an iPad, and my mate's got a fridge with a tablet fitted at the front of it. And yeah, I know luxury means it's unnecessary, but I don't think that's unnecessary. It's just stupid. Yeah, I get times of change. We're in 2022, but for me, there's no school like the old. This car recognises the car that Tupac Shakur got gunned down in. It was Pierce Brosnan's weapon of choice in the James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies, and I bet you'll all remember the iconic scene in Transporter 1 when Jason Statham showed us exactly what this car is made out of. And there's so many reasons that the E38 is just the pinnacle of all-time automotive luxury. A lot of thought and detail went into these cars. I mean, just listen to that. It was built to last. But as well as that, this car is now 27 years old, but just take a look at it. These E38s, the design on them, it's absolutely timeless. As well as the immense attention to detail and the timeless design of the E38, it's also got a good selection of engines. The base model being the 728. Now this has got an inline 6 2.8 litre in it, which can be found across the board with BMWs, as it ranges from the 3 Series right up to the 7 Series. Now this is the most robust of the engines, and it's probably the most efficient and the easiest to maintain out of the bunch. It's the perfect engine if you're wanting to get the E38 as a daily car. I mean, it's only got 193 brake horsepower, but that's the thing when you come to luxury cars, it's not all about power, and 193 is more than enough to get it along to where it needs to be. Now then you've got the 730 and the 735. Now funnily enough, these two cars have both got a V8, but it's not as powerful as the 740. But don't let that put you off, because the E38 is so smooth with them two engines. I mean, it's a luxury car, so it doesn't have to be fast, and that little bit of power that you miss out on, which you get from the 740, it's definitely made up by the ride and the smoothness of them two engines. You've obviously got the 740, which is what we're in today. I'll give you a bit more information on that in a minute. But then you've got the so-called flagship model, which is the 750i. Now this is a 5.4 litre V12 pushing out an enormous 326 bhp. So if you're looking for power, obviously that is the one to go for. But the maintenance costs on that car are astonishing, and it's not the most reliable, so that's something to keep in mind when you are buying a 750i. If you are looking to be a bit special, there's the Alpina models. Now remember, these are like gold dust. There's a 5 litre model, there's a 5.7 litre model, that's the same engine as in the 750, but it's bored out to a 5.7. Then there's the 6 litre, which is a 424 bhp monster. But let me tell you, these are probably touching sub 40k now. They're very hard to find, so if you are looking for one of them, you're gonna have a hard time finding one. I mean, whichever car you do choose to buy, you'll find that they've all got enough poke to briskly get you along where you need to go. I mean, these E38s are really autobahn cruisers. You'll realise that once you're hitting the motorway, you can sit at 140 and it'll do it effortlessly. It's like you're sat in your living room, because these seats are so comfortable and it's so quiet in the cabin. Now you have to remember that these cars are 1800 kilos, so they're fairly light for the size of the car. And the steering wheel really reflects this, as it is light as a feather. Sometimes you completely forget how big this car actually is. But my favourite part of this car is the suspension. Now you can get the optional EDC, which is the electronically controlled dampers. This obviously, depending on the road conditions, it sorts itself out, and it does give you the ultimate comfort, but 20 years, 30 years on, it's not going to be the most reliable. So I think the stock suspension is just absolutely sublime. I mean, it soaks everything up that the road throws at. It's literally like driving on air. The first thing that is complimented by passengers when they get into this car is how well it drives and how smooth it is. It really does make it a nice place to be in. Now, exception of obviously the Alpinas, the 740i is the cherry pick of the bunch which you want. Now, the reason this is because the 750s, they just break down far too much, and these are more reliable. And over the years, due to many factors, there's fewer 740i's on the road compared to 750s, which is actually surprising. But that does make them rarer at the minute, and it makes them more desirable. So the enthusiasts will tend to go for the 740i's. Now, I know I'm gonna have a mob of 750i owners in the comments right now, but I'm sorry fellas, the truth hurts, and the 740i is the one everyone wants and everyone needs. Now, this specific example is actually my own car. It's a 1995 740i. It's a low owner, well maintained, pristine example. It is actually the pre-facelift because it's a 95. It's one of the earlier ones. Now, I've owned both ends of the spectrum. I've had a 2001, which is one of the later cars, and it's a facelift. Now, that had the M62 engine in it, which is the 4.4. It was pushing out the same power. I think it was 282 or 286 or whatever it is. This is the M60 engine, and it pushes out the exact same bhp. But obviously BMW, they tried to better this engine, the M60, when they came out with the M62, and they didn't do a very good job. There's upsides and downsides to both engines. This one drives better. Obviously, it's been well maintained, and it's got low owners, and it's been meticulously maintained, this model, so it does drive a lot more refined, and you can really tell that it's been looked after. But when it comes to choosing a facelift or a pre-facelift, it comes down to personal preference, to be honest, because there's no real better car. They're both just as good as each other. But one thing I can recommend, whichever car you get, whether it's the 4 litre or the 4.4, make sure you decat it. This specific example has a decat, but it doesn't have the back box delete. My previous one, that had a decat and a back box delete, and the sound of that V8, it's pure ecstasy. So the interior is a really nice place to be in. It's got all the nice wood, the expensive leather. It's not all fake and cheap stuff like you get in the new cars. It's proper solid oak. This car's not exactly fully loaded, so it is missing a few things off the spec list. One of them is the sat nav. Now the sat nav, the E38 was one of the first BMWs to actually have a sat nav, and it was also one of the first cars in Europe to have the curtain airbags, so it shows that the E38 was always a bit ahead of its time. There's a massive spec list you can get. You can get rear blinds, back blinds, there's the tables in the back, there's the sat nav, there's heated and cooled seats, there's massage seats, there's loads of options you can get. This one hasn't got them, it's only a 95 model, but something I do like is the carpet like material it's got on the doors. Now this really does give it a cozy feel. We've got the memory seat functions here, so you save how you want your seat, and once you click them, it goes exactly up. There we're going, we're moving. When it comes to comfort, the E38 does it best. It's got these lush, thick carpets, and it's got these comfort seats which have got full bolster control, so you can control them and bring them forward and back, like so. So you can have them all the way forward, or you can extend them all the way back out. And it's these little features that make the E38 one of the most comfortable cars you'll sit in. The soft carpets and the big cozy seats. All you need now is a cuppa and you'll feel like you're sat in your living room. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. The 90s, it was a great era, mainly because it was the time I was born in, but there was also the fact that BMW produced some of the most influential cars to grace our roads. There was the likes of the Z8, the Z3M, or the first BMW X5, the E53, and then the likes of the mighty E39 M5. And obviously the E38. This then meant that the successor of the E38 had a lot to live up to, but it failed miserably. First of all, it looked like Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was the E65. Now this was a complete and total flop with the enthusiasts and the general public, and not to mention it didn't drive the best. Then there was the predecessor. Now this was a legend in itself. It was the E32. This was the first BMW 7 Series that featured a V8. Now this gave Mercedes something to think about when it first came out. Nevertheless, the BMW E38 is still regarded as BMW's high point in the flagship luxury model and overall BMW engineering. The problem with new luxury cars is they're all about the image. It's more of a fashion statement than anything else. Big blingy wheels which compromise the ride quality and all these fake wooden trims. The bottom line is the target market for the luxury cars has changed. It's now young, contemporary internet celebrities and influencers, whereas back in the days this was the mob's choice of vehicle. And for obvious reasons, of course, like the big boot in the back, so you can do things like this. But mainly because it was the kind of car that a mob boss would comfortably get driven around in while smoking on the most expensive cigars and drinking whiskey or scotch.
My father taught me many things. He taught me in this room. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
So at the start of this video I mentioned the new 7 Series and I compared it to the E38, and I did this solely because I wanted to show how much luxury has actually changed over the past 30 years. Now for me this car will always stand for luxury. The way it combines the quintessential BMW qualities of an exceptional driving experience with a perfectly subtle but understated form, it doesn't just make it the best BMW ever made. I think it's one of the best cars ever made, and it makes it far better than any car that there is today, because 27 years later this car still does everything it's meant to effortlessly, and it really does make you feel like you're something special, because as soon as you get into this car you're welcomed by the encapsulating smell of the grained leather. I mean, you put your windows down and there's the alluring sound of the V8 just purring away as you build your speed. Everything about this car was built properly and built with a purpose. You can tell this car was built to last and built to make an impression on the people who drove this car and who passengers in this car. I don't say this often, but this car is actually one that I adore, and when I do find the one, it's going to be a car that I'm I'm gonna drive and keep forever, and I'll even pass it down to my children. That's how goddamn good I think this car is. People soon, they're gonna be in their all fancy, all electric BMW i7s and their S-classes and whatnot, but you haven't truly experienced luxury until you've been in an E38. And if you have been in one and you don't agree with that, you've simply got bad taste. There's no other way to put it. But unfortunately for me, I've actually sold this example. It's heading off to Ireland in 2 days from now, so by the time you watch this video, I'll no longer own this car, but it's been a good one. Obviously, like I said, when I find the one, I'll never be selling that car, and that will be a keeper, and hopefully that is soon. But until then, I'm going to enjoy this last few hours of driving this beauty. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. You guys take care. What was I saying? 20. No, wait. What am I on about? What was I saying before? Did I? I mean, listen to that. That's just build quality, isn't it? I mean, just listen to that. That's proper build quality. Yeah. You listen to that. The build. Oh, shit. When it comes to comfort, the E38 did it best. Just look at this thick, luscious carpet. Luscious, is that a word? Thick. When it comes to comfort, the E38 did it best. It's got this thick, lush carpet, and then oh shit. When it comes to comfort, the E38 does it best. It's got this thick, lush carpet, and then it's got the massage. No, not the massage seats. What are they? The comfort seats. And these are contours. Let me just Google it. And as well as make the E38 one of the most comfortable. And it's these little features. And it's these little features that make the E38 so comfortable. It's like being sitting in. It's like being sitting. It's these little features that make the E38 so comfortable. It's like sat in your. It's like Ready? And it's these little features that make the E38 one of the most comfortable cars you'll ever sit in. The soft carpets and the big cozy seats. I was going to say chairs again. And it's these little features that make the E38 one of the most comfortable cars you'll ever sit in. The soft Here, wait. No. I want it one go. It looks. And it's these little features that make the E38 one of the most comfortable cars you'll ever sit in. The soft carpet and the big comfy. I'm going to say chairs. Jokes aside, it was mainly because this car. Wait, let me see what I look. The sun is shining on me. The interior is when it comes to